Welcome everyone to today's Jet Report Success Series webinar. Today we want to talk about summary lists versus detail lists. This is probably about the 14th session that we've done. We do it once a month, every second Thursday, and we come together for half an hour to talk about some sort of topic, whether it's jet related, maybe Power BI, maybe it's planning ahead, maybe it's any number of things, and we're really trying to mix things up and really kind of get you successful with our product. A quick introduction. My name is Brian Robinson. I'm the training and reporting manager here at Jet Reports. I've been with the company for about 4 years and have been working with clients all throughout those 4 years, learning how to use a product, how to build better reports, how to actually build the reports, all kinds of fantastic stuff. So today we want to talk about one of those aspects of building reports, of deciding whether I should use a summary list or should I use a detail list to start my report. Now, if those don't sound familiar to you, hopefully by the end of this, these ideas make sense and you'll have a better idea of when I should use one versus the other. A little housekeeping first, since this is a webinar, everyone is on mute, but if you have questions, you can always put them in the chat box or the question box, and I will be sure to try and get to those at the end if I have time. If not, I'll follow up, do a follow-up recording of those answers. Now, speaking of the recording, once this session is completed and ready for sharing, we're going to make it available to you. And you can just go out to our knowledge base and search for Success Series, and you'll find this and all of our previous sessions that you can go back and watch at any time. Or you can always go back to the page where you registered, and it will have a link to those as well. Okay. So now, before we get into content, you might ask, why exactly are we doing this? Well, obviously, we want you to be successful with our product, and there are a lot of things that go into that, whether you're using Express or Professional or Jet Enterprise. And the more successful you are, the better off we're going to be, because you're going to use things that you like, make you look cool, and make your job easier, right? So being successful is part of that. Now, today's topic really is going to apply just to Jet Professional, Jet Enterprise, because we are going to talk about things like replicators and NL functions, and those aren't available in Jet Express. So today we are looking at Jet Professional and Jet Enterprise, really specifically the Excel add-in specifically. So whether you're Nav or GP or a Cube or QuickBooks or just a SQL database, the source doesn't matter. The content behind it does matter. Okay. As I mentioned, this is an ongoing series. So next month, we've got Harry coming to talk about new features that are in the spring release of Jet Professional 2018. We've released some stuff. Some are very dramatic. If you look at the Jet ribbon as we go through today's session, there are some big changes to the ribbon. There are also some behind the scenes type of things that have been changed, and we want to make sure you're aware of those and what they are and how they work. Then in July, Sarah will be joining us to talk about the web portal. So we've had the web portal for about 2 years now, and obviously in 2 years we've made a lot of changes, improvements and changes and new features, and move things around. So come join us to learn about the web portal. I think it's a fantastic tool for making your reports available to everyone in your company and really organizing them in a nice way. Okay? And last, we've got our marketing slide here. Hey, we deliver fast and unparalleled access to data. Really what this slide is trying to tell us is that we've got over 13,000 companies. In fact, I heard a statistic this morning, over 154,000 registered users in 94 countries around the world using Jet to get access to their data in order to help them make better decisions, right? The better access you have data, the more you can make maybe informed decisions as you go about this. And we've been here since 2002, going strong, and exciting to see the changes that are coming forward in the product and new things that are coming out. So stick with us and see what we're all about. So the last thing we should probably do is just talk about what today's topic is all about. Okay? So there's a little bit more than just when do I use a detail list and when do I use a summary list, right? We need to talk a little bit about some Jet functions, right? Just as a review. Maybe you already know those things, maybe you don't. We need to talk about what the heck is a summary list or a detail list. And then we need to go through the thought process of how do I decide which one should I use. And then hopefully at the end, we'll have time to actually build one of each. And I've got an example ready that really kind of illustrates the difference. And I think it's a really cool example. So That's just me. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we want to talk about are our two main functions that we're going to use when building JET reports. The first is a replicator. It's that first thing that says, I'm going to go out to the database and create a list of things for you. No matter if it's 0 results or 1,000,000 results, you're limited by Excel's memory and ability there. Okay. So when we build these reports, I'm going to say, hey, give me a list of customers that had some sort of transaction in this year. And while I'm designing this, I just see some sample values. So this would be my replicator. Give me a list of customer numbers. And then what I see is when I run it, I see supporting data. This is the customer name associated with that number. These are the total sales associated with that customer number, right? So when we're building reports, the first step is to create that dynamic list because it might change based on filters or day that I run it or any number of things that could change. And then when I run it, I get a new list each time. So we use that replicator first, then we get some data functions. Those data functions are essentially JET functions that are not replicators. That's really what it comes down to. And we call them data functions because they pull back singular pieces of information. And there's three really common ones that you're going to use. You might have an NL first. If you use Excel, if you've used Excel for a long time, you might be familiar with the VLOOKUP. The VLOOKUP says, I need to go look in this range of cells, find the first instance of this value that you're telling me to look for. I need to stop there and then bring back some piece of associated information with it. That's what the NL first does. Goes out to the database, find this value for me, and bring me back something on that same record associated with that. Okay. We have the NL sum. Works just like Excel's sum function. Sum up the values in this range of cells. Well, this says go out to the database, pull a bunch of records that meet my criteria, and then sum those up. So here's a bunch of things. I'm going to sum them up. So pretty easy to understand there. And then we've got the NF function. And the NF function, it has a very unique case in that it is dependent, wholly dependent on something else. And we'll see that as we build our report. You can think of NF as new field because what it does is it says I'm going to go out to a specific record in the database and I'm going to pull back a field from that specific record. And then I can go to the next record and pull that same field, but it's going to be a different value probably. So these are the three main ones. There are other ones out there, but in my report building, these are the three most commonly used ones. And sometimes you'll use them all. Sometimes you'll just use one of them. Sometimes you might use ones that aren't even in here, right? But these are the most commonly used ones. Okay. My mouse isn't working. Okay, so here's what we want to see ultimately. We want to come in and say, okay, well, I'm going to build a replicator. Give me my list of things. Then we use those data functions to break it down and say, yep, this is that, this is that. And what we'll see is we have always got a filter calling back to that value because that is really what it is. On this row, the information should pertain to, in this case, this customer number. As I drop down to the next row, it should only pertain to this customer and this customer and this customer. Okay? So that's really what we're going to do. We'll kind of break this down a little bit further as we go forward, but really this is kind of a very standard kind of layout. I build a replicator and then I build supporting data functions. Okay. So let's talk about our two types of lists. The first one we have is a summary list. And the summary list is a little bit harder concept for people to understand a lot of times in the beginning because what it does is it summarizes tables. And when people think about summarizing tables, they usually think about maybe transactional tables. I need to summarize all these transactions into something, but they can really be used for almost any table. So summary lists, what they do is they will create a unique list of values from a field where that value is not unique. And regardless of how many times it is found in that data range that I'm selecting, if it's found, it only shows up once. So it creates this unique list of values to start off with. So as an example, if we think back to the last visual I had, we're going to a customer transaction table. And what am I doing? I'm going to create a list of customers who had some sort of transaction in 2016. Well, they could be associated with one transaction, 50 transactions, 10,000 transactions, right? The same customer could have just done one thing with us and then said, yep, that's it, cool, that's the only thing I need. Or every single day they're ordering multiple things from us, right? So think about the way that would look in a report. If they had 10,000 transactions, I don't want to see that customer number 10,000 times. I just want to say, yeah, they're on the list. I create that unique list. Okay, so that's kind of the concept of that, and we'll circle back to that idea of repeating and not repeating within a table. Okay. Once you've got your replicator, you use your data functions, and they're all going to be NL functions. The detail list, I think, is a much easier concept to understand in that whatever that table is, that's what this is going to produce. A detail list simply says, I'm going to go out to that table and I'm going to dump the records in that table. Now, if that table is a transactional table, what am I going to get? I'm going to get a report full of transactions and supporting information about those specific transactions. If I go to a master table, like my vendor table or my item table, my inventory table, whatever it is that you have, whatever your kind of master table is, I'm going to get a list of, in this case, say vendors and information about those vendors, their name, their address, their phone number, their contact information, right? Those types of things are just information about my vendors. I'm not going to see any transactional information because I'm in a master table. Okay. So we're still going to create our rows replicator for that, create a record key, and then we use our NF function. And our NF function is always used in conjunction with a detail list. Right? We won't see it in a summary list, okay? Because the NF is dependent on having a key to look at. Okay, so let's take a look at this idea of, well, okay, I kind of get the idea of what each of those are and when I might use them, kind of, maybe, but there's a clear, distinct way of going through this. So we created this flowchart, and you can actually find this on our KB, our knowledge base. And if you just type in summary list or detail list, right, this article will come up, and there's a little bit more text to it that actually talks about this, but let's kind of go through this process. The first thing I need to do in any report is figure out what is that replicator going to be? What is the thing that I need a list of? Right, that's the first step. I need to create a list of things and then the supporting information for it. So what do I want to see a list of? Then I need to figure out what table I need to use. And this is another area where people tend to kind of get confused a little bit. It really has to do with your specific data and what exactly you want to see in the report and what filters you need to apply. So it's kind of a bigger conversation than this. But what do I want to see a list of? You just figure out which table you need to use. And then you ask yourself this. This is where we start branching out. Does the thing I want repeat, or is it unique within that table? So we've got two choices here. Okay? So as I look over here to the left, we'll see I've got a list of customer numbers. This happens to be a customer table. And as I look through this list, I can say, well, in the customer table, no two customers can have the same customer number. Right? The customer number is unique to every single customer that is within our database. So in that case, the customer number is the thing I want, and it does not repeat. Well, it is unique, so I'm going to move to detail list. Okay. Now let's look at the other case. This is a transactional table, the customer ledger entry table maybe, or maybe the sales invoice table or sales credit memo, who knows. And I look at that and the customer number does repeat, right? I have 88, 88, 88, 88, 88. So in this one little section, they had 5 different transactions associated in that time frame. Okay. So in this case, I want a list of customer numbers. I need to go to this transactional table. And in that case, the customer number can repeat. Not that it does repeat, but it can repeat, I think is a better way to do that, say that. Okay. Well, yes, it can repeat. Well, if I need to then decide, should it repeat in my report or should it be a unique list? Right. So as I come through here, if I don't care and I want it to repeat, that's a detail list, right? That means I want to see each one of those individual transactions is really what that ends up meaning. Or no, I want a unique list of customers because what I'm going to do is I'm going to sum up line by line. This customer bought a total of this stuff. This customer bought a total of that stuff. I want a unique list. I'll go over to my summary list. So again, if you want this, you can always go to this KB article and just download this image or just keep that on file. Or you can always come back to this and listen to me talk through the thought process. So let's run through a couple scenarios here. Okay. The first one we have is I need to build a sales report that shows sales totals for each customer in January 2018. Now, as I look at this, I say, okay, well, what is it I want a list of? I need a sales report, okay, that shows sales. Oh, maybe I need sales for each customer. Ah, there we go, for each customer. So what I really need is a list of customers. And as you build reports, you realize, oh, I need to build a unique list, or I need to build a list of the unique identifier, in this case, customer number. I need to go to the customer ledger entry table because I need to look at transactions. If you had a transaction, great, in 2018, January 2018. If not, you probably don't need to be on the list because your total is going to be 0. You didn't buy anything from us, so why should you be on the list? Okay. Now, is this a summary list or a detail list? Well, we can go back through that process and say, okay, well, I want a list of customer numbers. I need to go to the customer ledger entry table, a customer transaction table. Could the thing I want repeat, or is it unique? Well, if I think about that, again, the same thing, customer numbers could repeat because they could be associated with more than one sale. Hopefully they bought many, many things from us, not just one time, but maybe many things to us. So it could repeat. Do I want it repeated in my report? Well, probably not, because really what I want to do is summarize this information. Ooh, I said a nice little keyword in there, summarize. Summary list, summarize. Ooh, look at how that works. Right? So no, I don't really want it repeated, so that tells me I'm going to do a summary list. Let's see if we are correct in our thinking here. Summary list, yes, the summary list will provide a unique list of customer numbers, and we'll use the sum function to calculate the total amount of the sales in the period. A lot of times if you see total or totals, and for each, that tells you what you want there. In this case, I need to see one line for each customer, and I need to see totals. So I need to sum things up. So you can probably guess if that last one was a summary list, this one will be a detail list, but let's walk through that process again. Build a report that shows all invoices and credit memos for January 2018. I need to go to the customer ledger entry table, right? In order to list out all of those customer transactions, I need to go to a customer transaction table. Thought process there. Okay. Now there's two trains of thought on this. Let's go back and say, okay, well, what do I want a list of? I want a list of invoices and credit memos. What are those? Those are customer transactions. What table do I need to use? The customer ledger entry table. Does that, or could customer transactions repeat? Could I have two of the exact same transactions for a customer? Same date, same totals, same thing, same document number, same all across the board? No, you can't have two. If they bought something from you in the morning and something in the afternoon, you're going to create two different invoices. Or you're just going to add on to the one this morning because you haven't fully posted it yet. Okay. So those transactions are unique. I'm going to go to a detail list. The other way to think about this is, what is kind of the unique identifier of that? In that case, the unique identifier is the entry number. Okay. Well, I need a list of the entry numbers because for each entry number, I need to get supporting information. I need to go to the customer ledger entry table. Does it repeat or is it unique? Well, every single transaction has to have a unique entry number, detail list, right? So just two different ways to kind of think about that process as we go through here and talk about this one, right? I need a list of document numbers or entry numbers, and document numbers are unique. Or the customer ledger entry table is simply a table of customer transactions. My report request is to get a list of customer transactions. Therefore, that's what a detail list does. It creates a report of customer transactions, or records from that table, I should say. So I got one more example before we actually go and build these reports real quick. Build a sales report that shows sales for each customer in January 2018 and the amount of each transaction. Now, is this a summary list or a detail list? Well, I'm going to go to the customer ledger entry table. Again, I'm dealing with customers and transactions and dates, and all those things kind of lead me to using this table because it gets me all the information I need. Now, I bring this one up because of the wording of it. Right? Build a sales report that shows sales for each customer in January 18. That sounds like the very first one, right? And that was a summary list. But we added this caveat and the amount of each transaction. So as I read this request, right, if I stopped right here at the end of 2018, that would be a summary list. But because I added this caveat of each transaction, that becomes a detail list. Why? Because really what this says is, if we reword this, build a sales report that shows each transaction for all customers in January 2018, right? That's really what we're asking. I need a list of sales transactions. And the rest of that is just kind of fluff and filters. So again, due to the fact that we need to see the amount of each transaction, we really need to see those individual transactions, not a list of customers. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through and we're going to build our replicator and we're going to build our data functions. Right? That's going to be our summary list. Then we've got our detail list. We're going to build our replicator and then we're going to build our data functions. Right? So let's go through and actually build those out. Okay. And I think this is a really cool example because essentially we're going to build those report requests that we were just kind of quizzing ourselves on. So in the first one, we knew it was a summary list. And I need to see a list of all the invoices and credit memos in January 2018. Okay. So I just need to see the customer number, the customer name, and the total sales. Well, when we build a summary list, what do I need? I need to start with a unique list of customer numbers. So I'm going to build my function right there. Now, this webinar isn't necessarily about how do I build these reports and how do I use the JET function wizard. This is really how is the logic of summary list or detail list and how do I build those and what's the difference, okay? So maybe we can cover that in a future webinar of specifically how do I use the JFX and all its wonder and glory. Feel free to put that in the survey at the end of this. Sorry, it took me a moment to think of that word. So I'm going to do my replicator rows, and what table am I going to go to? Well, we determined that I was going to go to my cust ledger entry table. Okay. And I need a list of customer numbers. This is how, I will at least tell you this, this is how you tell JET to build a unique list of these values. Go through this table and give me a unique list of customer numbers. I need to add my filters there, document type, and I'll use a reference up here, and then I will put in my posting date, and I will put that right there. Okay. So as I do that, what happens? When I run this, I should see a unique list of customers. There should be no duplicates in here. I should have about 80 some odd, I think, customers, 87 customers. And if I really look through here, I would find there are no duplicates. I could use some data validation and some other stuff to go through there. Don't need to go that far. I know that's the case. Now I need to get some supporting information. So I'm going to use an NL first, right? And I'll go to the customer table and I'll say, give me back the name when the number is what I find right over here. Excellent, fantastic. Total sales, well, I need to sum up things. So there was that NL first, right? One of the more commonly used data functions. I'm going to use the other one here, the sum function. And in this case, I need to go look at all those transactions and sum up those amounts. What's my criteria? Well, I need to know for that customer number. Okay. And then I need to know, well, only if the date occurred in this time frame and only if the document type is an invoice or a credit memo, because we do actually have payments and finance charges and late fees and other stuff in there. We're really just interested in the hard sales. What did we sell and what was returned? Hit OK. I'll go ahead and format this in Excel before I run it so we can take a look at it, and I will run this report. This is my summarization for each customer. Show me those things. Now, I can click on here and I can take a look at the actual transaction so we can see that this is indeed summarizing the information. There were 2 invoices in that time frame for that customer, and we can see the amounts there for that. And so there it is. That makes sense. That works. Okay. So I'm summarizing those transactions. So let's take a look at the detail list here. Now this is going to be the same table, the same filters, only this time I need to see the customer number, the document number, and the amount. So what I always like to do is I like to put in record key or record or whatever it is, just so I know, hey, my report actually starts here because I don't want a unique list of any one of these things. I need my spot for my records. Okay? So in this case, I'm going to do my rows again. I'm going to go to the cust ledger entry. Only this time, I don't want a unique list of any one field value in there. I want everything, right? So this is how we tell JET, should I do a summary list or should I do a detail list, right? I know what I want, but JET needs to know that. So I leave the field blank to tell it I want to do a detail list. I put a field in there if I want a summary list. So in this case, I'm going to leave it blank and I'm going to add in my 2 filters, just like I did before. Order does not matter in this case. Posting date, so if I put them in a different order last time, doesn't really matter. Hit OK, and I should get this long string of gibberish. And when I run this report, what should I get? I should get individual records. Now, how do I know these are records? Well, because I know how to read this. The first parameter here says JetCorp 2015. That means go to that data source. Cronus JetCorp USA, go to that company within that data source. Go to table 21. That is my customer ledger entry table. And you will find the key or the unique identifier in field number 1. And this is that unique identifier. So essentially, this is a map to a bunch of different houses in my neighborhood. And I'm going to go up to each house. I'm going to ask it questions. Hey, in this house, what's your customer number? What's your document number? And what's your amount? And then I'm going to move on to the next house. I'm going to ask those same questions. The amounts might be the same. Customer number might be the same. Document number should not be the same. Okay. So let's take a look at what we need to do now. Now that I've got that, I'm going to add in my hide keyword up here so I don't have to see that anymore. Once I've got my NL, I need to switch to my NF. I need to switch and say, hey, where's my key? Right there. And the field that I want is my customer number. That's it. Then go to the next house, pull the new field from this record, and this time bring me back the document number. And lastly, the amount, NF, right? Because I need to go look at this specific record. For that record, tell me what the amount of that transaction was. I'll format this again so we can see it in US dollars here, and I'll run this report. And here's the really interesting thing about these two examples. They are the same report. They're just displaying the data differently. Now, how do I know these are the same report? Because I can select all of these values, right? I can come in and do an auto sum down here, right? Auto sum, total of that is 1.520, right? So I'll come down here, I'll do the same thing, auto sum all that up for me, 1.520. These are the same filters, the same data, but I'm just displaying it in two different ways. One, I'm summarizing it customer by customer. The other one, I'm actually physically showing you each individual transaction. Now, I could go through here, customer number 8, right? There were 2 transactions. I should see customer number 8 in here twice. And so if I really wanted to look through here, we could. There they are. Those are those 2 transactions for customer number 8. And as I go through here, I should not see any other customers or documents for that customer. Now there's lots of them, so it's a little hard to scroll through all those, but I can specifically see that those are there, and those 2 totals combined, right, 17,000 and 17,000 equals 34,000. So it's depending on how you want to see the data. Right? I can build a report that is a summary list. I can build a report that is a detail list. I can use the same filters. I can use the same tables, and I can get the same data looking 2 different ways, whether I want it summarized or broken down transaction by transaction. All right, so hopefully that makes a little bit more sense. Right? The idea is, which way do I want to see it? And that also helps you think about, is this a summary list or is this a detail list? Okay. I do want to leave you with just a few things here at the end. This is something that a lot of people struggle with in the beginning. So if you don't quite get it right now, don't feel frustrated. You're not alone. Everybody struggles with this in the beginning. And oftentimes when I first started, I would build a summary list when I really needed a detail list, and I'd build a detail list when I really needed a summary list because I didn't quite understand exactly what the client was asking. Right? So if you struggle with this, don't worry, you're not alone. Right? Soon it'll become second nature. Oh, yep, I got that. I need this, I need that. Right? Another thing we can think about is when you take your reports to the next level and start building grouping reports, you might have a combination of both summary lists and detail lists. So as an example, I need a list of customers, and for each customer, I need to see the invoices. Right? That would be a summary list, show me all the customers who had an invoice, and then for each customer, show me the individual invoices. Summary list with a detail list as its secondary grouping. So we might mix and match them in one report. And you can even see in this one report, I created 2 different sheets, one with a summary list, one with a detail. This is very common for people. Well, I want to be able to see the summary, but I also want to go look at the detail if I really want to. Now, for me, I tell people, build the report you want, not the report that you sometimes want to look at. Build the report you want, but that's a whole different topic. And the last thing is, detail lists can sometimes have NL functions in that region, but we can't have an NF in a summary list because there's no record key, right? I tried and stress that in the beginning when we talk about NFs and detail lists. The NF requires a record key. If there is no record key, it's not going to work, right? So What I mean by you might have an NL function is in the customer ledger entry table, in this customer transaction table, there are no customer names. I don't know who these people are. I know who these people are, but I don't know who these people are. So it would be nice if I could assign the name of each one of those records, but unfortunately, it doesn't exist in that table. Right? So here's how you would go about doing that. You would come in and say, give me the customer name. I'll put in my fit up here, my keyword, and this will just be an NL function. I can't use an NF because that says go to that specific record, and that record doesn't have a customer name on it. But I do have a customer number, so I can say, hey, do a VLOOKUP to the customer table and bring me back the name associated with that number. So this is what I mean by you could have an NL function in the middle of your detail list, but you can't have an NF in the middle of your summary lists. Right? There it goes. Okay. So that brings us to the end of today. I want to thank you for joining us for the past 30 minutes talking about summary lists, talking about detail lists. I see that question there. The question is, can you have an NF function without an NL? No. I can't think of a scenario where you'd have an NF without an NL because the NL returns a record key and the NF points at that record key. So just having an NF hanging out by itself, it wouldn't really know where to go in the database. Well, thank you once again for the past 30 minutes joining me on our little journey here. Come join us next month. Again, Harry will be with us next month to talk about new things about Jet Professional, the spring release. And then in July, we've got Sarah coming to talk about the web portal. Both awesome topics. Join us again, fill out the survey at the end of this. If you get a chance, really quick, really easy. And we look forward to seeing you next month. Have a great day if you want to.